it took me a second to figure out what exactly this campaign is, and now that I figured that out, I do want to say that I really do love what I'm seeing here. This is a brand new game in the Thinning Veil world, and the Thinning Veil is a campaign that I did cover in the past. Unfortunately, they weren't able to fund, and I think a reason for that is because it was quite expensive. It was offering a lot. And of course, for a mostly rational backer, we probably want to have as much confidence as possible before shelling out a whole whack of money for a game. But I think the publisher here recognized that, and they are now offering a more low-cost version for players to get their feet wet with what this game does have to offer. So this new campaign is actually offering a brand new game into the world, and they're also offering it at a much more reasonable price, and also offering print and play versions as well. And they will go ahead and relaunch this game in the future. But what I really like about this sequence that they're taking here is that you can experience the game with this first more inexpensive campaign, and then if you absolutely love what they're offering here, you can go ahead and get the entire larger box game that does play at a higher player count, because the version that they're offering in this campaign is actually a solo game. But I think this approach here really speaks wonders to their confidence in the game and their pride in it by offering a more pared down version to help more people experience that game, which I am personally a massive fan of. I always think any publisher should try to figure out ways to offer their games to as many people as possible. Sure, offering all those deluxifications and ton of expansions, but then also offering something that's a little bit more reasonable. I know this does come with additional overhead, and I understand why it isn't always done, but I feel like most of the reason that this isn't done is because big publishers just want you to spend as much as possible. But what Triskelion Games is doing here does make me really happy, and I hope this sets the example for what's possible for other publishers in the industry. And I know it's not always required depending on the scale of your game, but doing anything to raise your backers' confidence and giving them the opportunity to experience your game, whether it's through print and play files or pared down versions of your game, Tabletop Simulator, providing the rulebook in advance, or even just offering a variety of reviews from different reviewers. There's a lot that can be done here, and I feel like a lot of those options just aren't normally explored. But like I said, I did cover the previous campaign, and I did think this game looked like a lot of fun, so I'll go ahead and roll that footage for you now. Just keep in mind that this campaign is going to be a more paired version of that and offering just the solo experience. But if you are interested in it, I will have it linked in the description down below. This is a narrative campaign game, but it can also be played as one-shot scenarios, and this is a cooperative game. This is going to have a theme that is in the horror genre, but focuses on Celtic mythology and Irish legend. And the way that this game plays is that each player is going to be playing as their own asymmetrical character, and you're going to be able to choose a scenario to play, or if you're playing the campaign mode, it's going to walk you through the scenarios in sequential order. But essentially, each game you're going to be playing through a multi-level dungeon where you're going to be starting on a specific tile, and then you're going to be randomly generating tiles as you progress and move through the dungeon until you go through all the different levels and eventually face off against a final boss. And the final boss could be hordes and hordes of enemies, or it could also be a specific monster that's just way stronger than the rest, or even a combination of the two. But this is a game that uses dice in almost every aspect, and as players are exploring the different tiles, you're going to be rolling dice to determine what appears there, and that could be different enemies or different points of interest like items or skill checks that players are going to have to pass. And as you are killing these different enemies, you're going to be collecting those souls, which you could spend to help you later in the game. But the thing that I find is the most interesting aspect of this game, and I think what sets it apart from other dungeon crawlers, is the way that the player boards work. Each player is going to be choosing their asymmetrical character and then sliding it into this dashboard. And on the bottom you have the different stats of your character, and you're essentially going to be adding cubes to each of the different stats, which you'll be able to spend or you might gain or lose throughout the game. But your stats generally mean your capacity for that specific stat. So if you're a berserker, you might be really high in health but really low in faith. And there'll be different opportunities to use each of these stats either for skill checks or fighting or any other actions that you might perform out on the main board. But my favorite part about this board is the way the actions play into it, and all the actions are outlined on the right hand side of the board. And at the start of your turn, you're going to be rolling dice that have all those different icons matching the actions. And whichever icons you roll, you're going to be adding an activation cube to each of those associated actions. This is going to let you know which actions you have available on your turn, except for this final action, which is the enemy activation space, and any cubes that go into there are going to activate the enemies. And the reason that I find this so interesting is because it means you're not necessarily going to have the same actions available to you every single turn. Since you're rolling dice, you're going to have to roll with the punches and sometimes just do the best with what you have available to you. Luckily, there is some mitigation and there is some ways to control this, because if there's any actions that aren't particularly useful on your turn, you can actually slide them over to the left side of the board and bank those for a future turn. So you can guarantee that you have that available to you on your next turn. But since this does involve dice rolling, there is always a chance that you just roll a ton of enemy activations on your turn, which isn't a great thing, but you can always choose to skip your turn and ignore all results of the dice, but there will always be one enemy activation if you decide to go that route. And the game continues like this until the players reach the final boss, and if they beat the boss, then they win the game. And if you're interested in this game or any other that I have to mention in this video, you can find links in the description below.